I often have people asking me, the men's rights movement, what's that about? What's their platform? What are their goals? And I always get a little flustered. I don't know how to answer that. It seems like you have so many goals that how do you condense it into an easily explainable way?
I think you and I probably share the same experience. Trying to articulate the entire platform of the men's rights movement is kind of like trying to understand a snowdrift one snowflake at a time. It's a very, very complicated matter. We have the injustices, the legal injustices that are going on, like we've just been talking about with family courts. We have the issues that are going on, men's suicide rates, what's happening to men in education, the sentencing disparity in criminal courts. Men are sentenced to 63% more prison time for the same crime as women. They're more than 3 times as likely as women to go to jail for the same crime, and the sentencing disparity between men and women for the same crime is 6 times greater than it is between whites and other minorities. And we go on and on and on and on, one subject after another, of these different things that impact the life of men and boys. We have a ton of stuff that's just specific to boys. We have young men that are failing to launch. They're staying in their homes of origin far past the time that we would normally expect them to individuate and move out and go live their lives. We have video game addiction. We have pornography addiction. We have the abuse of young boys with drugs like Ritalin to manage their behavior. I mean, there's no shortage of issues. They're stacked as high as you can see. So putting it all into a nutshell, I sympathize with that problem. It's impossible to do. But what we can do is that we can articulate one basic idea about men that I think does sum it up, and it has an impact on all these issues and how we inevitably look at them. It's time for us to start seeing that men are human beings, that they have feelings, that they have pain, that they feel betrayed by injustice, they feel outrage by mistreatment, they are hurt when we abuse them, they're hurt when we take their rights away, just like any other person you can think of. And that is a lot of what A Voice for Men tries to pay attention to, is that once we begin to have the concept of men, not as human doings, but as human beings, and once we decide that they're actually worth listening to, that it's actually all right for them to complain about something bad happening to them. Once we get that established in this culture, then we can start addressing this whole range of problems that affect men and boys in very specific ways. But we'll never get there until we first get over the cultural prejudice that men should not complain about anything, and the myth that men have all the power, which we've already discussed, which they do not. These are men that we're discussing, and with all these problems, that are the most powerless individuals you can possibly imagine. A man that has been mistreated in family court, that's had his children taken away from him, that has had all of his income taken away, that has had his reputation ruined, has absolutely nobody he can complain to about this. The legal system does not want to hear it. Other men do not want to hear it. Women don't want to hear it. Nobody wants to hear it. Who does he talk to? We wonder why. That when you look at the suicide rate between men and women, it is about 4 times male to female in normal circumstances. During the course of a divorce or a serious breakup, it moves to 10 to 1. Because men are isolated during these processes. And because a lot of times even their own families turn on them, tell them to man up, take it. You decide to get married, you go take care of your kids. Every bit of betrayal that they're feeling, every bit of mistreatment that they're taking, the response they typically get from the society around them is to shut up and take it. as long as that's happening, we're going to continue to have problems. And that'll keep happening as long as we refuse to see that these are flesh and blood human beings that have real problems and that deserve some compassion.
So all of those issues that you listed off, I think most people would agree that yes, those are issues we need to look at and we need to address. So why do you think the men's rights movement is at odds with feminism? What has created that clash and that war between each other?
Well, one, feminism has spent the last 50 years demonizing men, which is sort of one of the problems. Feminist scholars have characterized men as inherently violent, inherently bad, inherently predatory, inherently oppressive. They have postulated that we need to reconstruct men in a feminist paradigm, that they are defective by nature, that masculinity is a disease. They even have a name for it. It's called hegemonic masculinity, where they really believe that there is a brand of masculinity that is psychopathic in nature with its control and with its tendency to abuse others around it. I suppose they have forsaken any examination of normal human psychopathology in that and just gone for the fact that it has something to do with masculinity in their eyes. So where has feminism gone astray in this? We're going to be talking a long time about that. Feminism is a huge, huge part of the problem for men in this culture right now. If you go to any major university, for instance, one of the things I talked about a few minutes ago was that right now that there was something like 38% of college students on average are male. Women are earning about 70% of degrees that are issued. And at rates that men are falling out of college, like I said, the last degree issued, a bachelor's degree, would be issued to a man in 2025. It probably will level off and we will be continuing to give men degrees, but at the rate of decline right now, that's the picture. Yet when you go onto a college campus, which are feminist-controlled strongholds, academically speaking, every gender-specific program you see, almost without exception, is for women. Every special consideration. It's the same way in our healthcare system. Men die on average 5 years younger than women. They die more frequently of most all the top killer diseases. We have several national offices for women's health, and we have nothing for men. If that's not bigotry, if that's not real, deadly sexism, I don't know what is. And this is a product of feminist influence in our culture. Men have so many health problems that are unaddressed. We don't care about them. We have NFL players wearing pink ribbons for breast cancer, which is fine. Yes, raise money for breast cancer. That's a wonderful thing. Given that they're men, what about prostate cancer? How about NFL players dedicating some time to raising money for prostate cancer awareness and research? The fact of the matter is that there's no political benefit to it. It is an orphan problem. There's some research going on, but you can't look at the fact that men have so many more significant health problems, among them the fact that they're socially conditioned to not seek attention medically when they have problems. And at the same time, the lion's share of gender-specific research money for medical research goes to women. If this were happening to women, if we were dedicating 80, 90% of our gender-specific medical research to men, and we had no office for women's health, but we had several offices for men's health, it would be a national outrage. People would be furious. A lot of times people wonder about MRIs, why are you guys so angry? And my answer to that is, why aren't you? How can anybody look at this and not be angered by it? And the only answer to that I've ever been able to come up with is that people aren't angry because they don't see men as human beings. It's one thing when you look at what happens to women and you feel normal, healthy outrage about it, and that should happen. But when you can look at what's happening in our courts to men, in our medical establishment to men, in our schools to men, and all the things that we've been talking about here, and yet we remain so cerebral about all of it, and we remain intellectual, and we say, yes, well, that is certainly something to consider. If it were happening to any other group, we would be having protests from coast to coast in this country, and the fact is that it is happening to men every day right in front of our eyes, and people will get angry at you if you try to talk about it. That's how deep the prejudice runs against men in this culture. And people not wanting to believe that's true doesn't make it not true. It is true, and we can see it right in front of our eyes.
Yeah, I'm angry now. that gives you every reason to be angry.
If people want to know why MRAs are angry, this is why. Anger is a healthy response to injustice. It is supposed to be felt. When people feel compassion about the struggles of people that are unaddressed or that are ignored, when they respond to that in anger, they're asserting their humanity. They're standing up. I used to identify as a feminist. When I saw things that I believed happening to women that disproportionately, that weren't happening to men, when I believed that, now some of my views have changed about how much things are happening to who and when. I've become a lot more educated about it. But when I looked at it and I saw it happening to women and I believed it was disproportionate, it made me angry. I wanted to do something about it. I didn't want to just sit and be quiet, and I didn't want to just say, well, yeah, that's really rough, and then go on about my business. I wanted to take action, and I did. I did for a number of years. And when I did it, oh, it was great. People patted me on the back, told me what a great person I was, what a wonderful man I was to stand up for women, for their struggles, for their troubles, and to try to do something about them. And the moment I started standing up for men, people started taking shots at me and telling me that I hated women, that I must hate women. How could I stand up for men unless I hated women? That is the level of bigotry in this culture. What you will find as you talk to feminist academicians is they will tell you flat out that men don't have these issues, that there is no prejudice against them in courts, there is no prejudice in healthcare, there's no prejudice against them in schools. There's nothing to be done here except perhaps we need to defeat patriarchy and help men express their feelings more like women. It's a load of lies. It is a load of absolute lies. And you're going to hear it when you talk to these people from coast to coast in this country. They don't have any interest in helping with men's issues. Men's issues are about staying alive. Men's issues are about maintaining their constitutional rights. Their issues are not that they don't express their feelings correctly enough for feminists. That is not the issue for men. But you hear it just the same. And again, I mean, I can even feel the anger now well up in me when I talk about this, because this stuff is unjust. It's not supposed to be happening this way. We're supposed to have compassion for our fellow man just as much as our fellow woman.